Hi, I'm Steve Howcroft. For the next hour or so, we're going to look at a variety of mental health related topics. How to interact, respond with people with or potentially may have mental health problems. How to keep an eye on and support one another. How to help our own mental health. How to help teenagers. And how to care for the carer. These are all big topics and would normally have a few hours each to go into them in detail, but the first hour will be a teaching session on all of them, and there'll be a follow-on Q&A. A little bit about me. I worked at Crossways Community for over 30 years, and prior to that 2 years at Kenwood Trust, which is now described as a substance misuse charity. A little bit about Crossways. It was founded in the mid-60s in Croydon, and we moved to Tunbridge Wells in 1971. We merged with another charity in 2020 and now have 2 care homes for working age adults with mental health problems. We have a supported accommodation hostel and several semi-independent flats. Beyond the accommodation, we have 3 extra projects. Crossways Enterprise, where we help residents develop practical skills. Kitchen Table, our cafe in Camden Road. And this, Mental Health Awareness, which is a part of Crossways that helps to educate the wider public on mental health issues. I want to ask you, what comes to mind when you see or hear the phrase mental health? I'll give you a few seconds to think about it. Here are some that other groups have come up with. I'll now add a few of my own which don't usually get mentioned. You'll notice I've used different colours. This isn't random. When most people do this exercise, they see the phrase mental health but think of mental illness. But the two are very different. When we think of physical health, we might think of exercise and good diet, and we tend not to think of someone with a cold or broken leg. When we meet people, we can make assumptions about them, the job they do, their social class, whether they're married or single, the schools their kids go to, their clothes, house, car they drive. We make assumptions and quite often value judgments about people. These can be very difficult to adjust if people or circumstances change. In the same way, we can make the same assumptions about people who have mental health problems. The assumption here is that once someone has a mental health problem, they've crossed over some imaginary wall and they're always mentally ill, even if they later have no symptoms. 1 in 4 people will have a mental health problem in any 1 year, the majority of whom are those with anxiety and or depression. Society would grind to a halt if all of them were unable to work. But this isn't a reality. Most people with a mental illness do recover, and in fact, we all have varying degrees of mental health and mental ill health. So a better view is not to look at the diagnosis or label, but at how well someone is functioning. There are plenty of people with schizophrenia who are married with jobs and able to function in society because they are stable on their medication. This might vary at times, but there are also plenty of people without diagnosis who are leading lives of quiet desperation. So why do we make assumptions, and how powerful are they? Imagine you go to sit on a chair. How often would you check that the chair will hold your weight before you risk sitting on it? It saves time and energy only to focus on potential risks and assuming everything else is fine. So we take it for granted the chair will be strong enough to hold us. But our assumptions can also be wrong. If you're not convinced that our brains can make the wrong assumptions at times, here's another example. On the screen is a chessboard with 2 marked squares. If I were to move the square with B on it and place it on the square with A on it, would it be lighter, darker, or the same? Have a think for a second. Lighter, darker, or the same? Here's a solution. In this animation, I'm cutting and pasting square with B on it until it's on top of the square with A on it. It's a clever trick devised by Edward Adelson. We understand what a chessboard looks like, so we make assumptions. The square with B on it has dark squares around it, the square with A light squares around it, so they look different, but in fact they're the same. Well done if you got that right, but most people don't. We've assumed that the green cylinder is casting a shadow, and in the same way, our brains know that a plain floor or carpet, part lit by sunlight and part in shadow, is also the same, even though the part in shadow looks darker. So in this example, we think square B is in shadow even though the only light is from your screen. We're going to focus now on communication. It's a deceptively easy concept, but on which we tend to make the easiest mistakes. So what is communication? Albert Mehrabian determined that communication was made up of three basic elements: information, the actual words we say, our tone of voice, how we speak, and body language or non-verbal communication. Here are the percentages that he came up with. Although other research would vary the relative amounts, in general only a small proportion of what we actually say is important in how we communicate. Please note, this doesn't mean that if we turn the sound off, we can understand most of what people are saying on TV, at least not without lip reading. It means that if there's a disconnect between what we say and how we say it, people will tend to focus more on our body language and tone of voice than what we're actually saying. One of the concerns people have is that they might say something to upset the other person. Although that is still possible, by and large, if our attitude and tone of voice is correct, this will mean more than any wrong word said. Here's a video that shows how awkward people can feel if they're trying to discuss a colleague's or friend's mental illness.
Oh look, Dave from accounts is back at work. He's been off for ages for some kind of mental illness. That's an awkward one. Should I say anything? I don't know how I react. Alright, Dave. Good to see you back, mate. How you feeling?
How am I feeling? Well, this song goes out to the guy standing in front of me holding the green folder who just asked me how I was feeling, thereby highlighting the fact that I've been off for a bit with mental health problems. Thanks a lot. Speaking. How am I feeling? How am I feeling? Ooh, treats. I'll start with the cinema. How am I feeling? Pretty good, thanks. Yeah. Good days and bad days, but yeah, I'm glad to be back at work. Cheers for asking.
No worries.
How are things with you?
Yeah, great, can't complain.
Yeah.
So why do we find it difficult to help people with mental health problems? Here's acronym NICHE. N. Not my problem. I'm not a mental health professional. I've got enough on my plate as it is. Can't somebody else deal with them? I might say the wrong thing. They might get angry with me or burst into tears, and I might make their situation worse. C. Can't they just help themselves? Surely if they were to pull their finger out, they could get their act together. H. Helping them might mean they become dependent on me. I got enough as to deal with. E. Everyone else is ignoring them. That must be the right thing to do. Most people don't want us to be mental health specialists. There are plenty of those already. So how can we help people? One of the key skills is being a good listener. This might sound deceptively simple, but it's the one thing we all can get right, but it tends to be the one thing that many people get wrong. So let's look at some role plays on being a good or bad listener. Okay, we're going to do some listening exercises. Right, Sarah, I'd like you to talk for 1 minute on any subject you like, and I'll do that to stop. Off you go.
Well, I think I'm going to talk about my garden, if that's all right. Do you like gardening? Oh, right, okay. Well, anyway, a bit of a mess. We've had a few storms, a lot of rain. So there's really a lot of raking to do, not much mowing, and all of the beds need to be kind of weeded and turned over, ready for sowing. Well, the other thing that needs to be done, which I sort of put off, is what's it called? Trimming, cutting back, pruning the clematis. The clematis goes across the trellis near the bottom of the garden, and it really does get quite overgrown. Now, I usually take some clippers and...
Okay, was I being a good listener?
No, absolutely
No.
not.
I was listening to every word you're saying. So why wasn't I being a good listener?
You were yawning, Steve. You were looking around. I think I might have caught you looking at your phone. Was that? I mean, it wasn't great, to be honest. I think you're a bad listener, Steve.
But you were talking about your garden, there's some raking and about the storm and issue with the clematis. So I was listening to what you were saying. So why wasn't I a good listener? Do you think I was being a good listener, even though I was listening to what you were saying?
I think there wasn't any eye contact. I think that was maybe putting me a bit off, and on all this yawning business. I mean, you looked bored. I mean, you didn't look interested at all. It kind of put me off my stride, really.
Okay, I don't agree with you, but I will take your word for that. Okay, so my body language was quite poor, even though I could give a summary of what you said.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's try that again, and this time I try and keep my body language neutral. I try not to yawn, and I keep my phone out of distance. And so another minute, any subject you like, or say one again. I'll do that to stop, and off you go.
Birthdays. More importantly, lockdown birthdays. I've had one lockdown birthday.
Well, you've had lots of birthdays already, so one more is that a really problem for you?
Well, yes, because, I like my birthdays to be really special, don't you?
Well, I'm guessing it's a big one this time round?
No, don't be cheeky. Well, I suppose big one is at 21 again. But anyway, I wanted it to be special. I just didn't really know what to expect this year.
Probably a bus pass, I'm thinking, this time round.
Oi! Anyway, my children came up good. So they got videos of friends and family. They put it together on a little film and they sent it to my phone and then they played it to me. And it really cheered me up. It was fantastic. I got visitors throughout the day. I got flowers. Went on a lovely bike ride. It was a glorious day. Absolutely amazing. Really warm.
Well, I'm sure you deserved every single moment of that. All the effort people put in for you. I'm sure you deserved it.
Oh.
Okay, stop. Okay, was I being a good listener then? I was trying to keep my body language neutral the best I can.
Wasn't convinced, actually.
Why is that? I was listening. I was trying to keep good eye contact with you.
Well, what was it? Maybe a sarcastic tone, Steve? Maybe that was it?
I'm horrified by that thought. Okay, I'll take your word for it. I'm not convinced. I'll take your word for it. So, body language, try and keep that neutral. Tone of voice, trying to keep that more neutral and more supportive. So let's have a third go. Okay. 1 more minute, any subject you like, or say one again, and I do that to stop. Off you go.
Holidays. Let's talk about holidays. I'm really excited about going on holiday.
Where would you like to go? What's your dream holiday?
Well, I think we're all different in this house. I think some of us would like to be in a little cottage by the sea. Definitely hot sun, but like maybe inland, I'm not inland, but in the UK.
Yep.
I think my children, one of them might like to be in Egypt, want to explore. The other one, probably Portugal. One doesn't like flying though. That's the only thing. But anyway,
that's
really
tricky.
Excited. Yeah, really excited to get away. I think it would do us all good to think of something we could do together.
So your children want hot holidays, and you'd rather have more UK temperate holiday. So that's quite difficult. There's obviously France. France is somewhere in between. You get some nice little gîtes you can get which are very nice. And you got to drive over there with
Yeah.
a suitable EU passport thing you have to do now. But that
Yeah,
might be a compromise.
or I could take the train to France, couldn't I? So that might be
You
the best
could.
of both worlds, actually. No, that's a
Yeah.
really good idea. Yeah.
Okay, let's stop there. Okay. Was I being any better a listener?
Well, I think Steve, you did improve. Yes, I think you really hit the jackpot that time. I think 10 out of
Okay.
10.
Okay, Albert Morabian, who came up with these ideas, only had three things. So body language, tone of voice, and information on what we say. But actually communication is more than that. So we're going to do another exercise and see what you think of this one. So, okay, Sarah, so 1 minute, any subject you like, or the same one again, and I'll do that to stop. Off you go.
Well, I think I'll speak about the holidays again, really, because I think it's going to make a real difference to society.
Mm.
I think, you know, the people around here there's just going to have a spring in their step. I think, you know, spring is on its way. I think people are feeling a bit happier, but actually to put something in their diary, to book to go and see friends or family or go on a proper holiday. I know we haven't got the heads up for going abroad yet, but I mean, even somewhere just to stay away, staycation would be an amazing thing. Oh, sorry, Steve, I'm going to have to go to the door. I won't be.
Okay,
I won't be
that's
long.
fine. Yeah. Okay.
Hello. Hello. Yeah, just a minute. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Hi, Fred. How you doing? Oh, I can't talk for long. I've got my tongue to Sarah. Oh, she's been waffling on about their holidays. Boring, boring, boring. Oh, I had to go away on holiday and for somewhere warm. And it's all be happy, happy. Well, get over it, dear. The rest of us all got to struggle with this. And she keeps going on her family as well. And it's so dull. So absolutely dull. But, you know, oh, she's coming back. I'll chat to you later, Fred. Bye.
Oh, sorry, Steve. Put the camera.
Sorry, I was, yeah. So was I being a good listener then?
Sorry, I'm back again. Yeah, you were
So was I
brilliant, Steve. Yes, thank you so much. I feel a bit better, you know, just to talk about the subject. You know, it makes me feel excited. So, yeah, you were a good listener. Brilliant.
So, and if you were to, you know, talk about the same, it's a bit weird, but talk about the same subject again, would you happy to talk to me? You know, was I using good body language or not being sarcastic?
I think you were just being really nice, actually, really encouraging, good positive body language, eye contact. Oh, I've just got a text here. Sorry, Steve, it's a bit rude, isn't it? Oh, it's from Fred.
Yeah.
You know Fred, don't you?
Oh, yeah, I was speaking to him very recently, actually.
Really? Oh, he's just sent me a message. Oh, you don't mind if I read it out, do you?
No.
Oh. Oh. Oh, actually, no, it wasn't something suitable I can read out, actually. No, it's rather hurtful, really. Sounds like that you weren't very encouraging at all. I think you've just been saying nasty things behind my back. Don't feel very happy now. You know, perhaps we'll end it here, Steve.
Okay, stop there. So, okay, we'll have another go and slightly different approach. And again, there's people think this is good listening as well. So, Sarah, same setup. 1 minute, any subject you like, and I'll do that to stop. Off you go.
Well, on the subject of holidays, I think I've made my mind up. I think perhaps a good compromise might be to go to France.
I love France. I've been there umpteen times. Really love France. If you get a chance to go down to sort of southern France, Carcassonne area, the Languedoc region, and Carcassonne's lovely. Biggest wall city, I think, in Europe. I can't remember if that's true or not, but it's a beautiful area, and the food is absolutely divine. You know, there's foie gras, which you don't want to know what that is, but the wine's lovely, the food is such gorgeous, and it's the loveliest place to go. You really ought to go there. Oh, I went there about 20 years ago with some friends, and we had a couple of gîtes, one place, one here, one place there, so we travelled the area. I went down to Andorra, which you can get your cheap fags if you smoke, which thankfully I don't. But it is a really lovely area. Yeah, you really ought to go there. Anyway, I can't really chat anymore. You really are bending my ear with your gossiping. But yeah, it's been really lovely to catch up with you, Sarah, and enjoy that holiday.
Oh, right. Thanks, Steve.
Well, I thought I was being a very good listener then. I think I really heard what you were saying about France, and I look forward to hearing how you get on. Thank you very much, Sarah.
Oh, thank you, Steve.
Here's a summary. Maintain good body language and make sure that your tone of voice is appropriate. Don't talk over people. Be careful how we talk about people and perhaps try and pretend that they're listening in. Basically, how you speak will make it obvious what you think about them. One we haven't covered is written communication. It's a lot easier to be rude and critical about someone if they're not in the room with us, especially if we're online and we don't see their reaction. We're going to look at two of the most common forms of mental illness and some of the more common signs. Firstly, depression. Depression isn't feeling mopey or just having a bad day. Clinical depression is when we have symptoms which affect us for at least 2 weeks. Depression can also be a side effect of some medication and physical treatments. Because of stigma around mental ill health, people can be very good at hiding it when they are depressed, but they might mention they're experiencing some of the symptoms. It's very common to hear that someone has been depressed and their work colleagues or friends weren't aware of it, but often get the subtle clues. Hence, listen out for changes in behaviour that seem to last more than the odd occasion. Poor sleep and poor mental health often go together. People can find that they get more tired and need more sleep or wake up during the night and find it hard to get back to sleep again. Apathy or anhedonia is a symptom where someone has lost interest in activities previously enjoyed. Not having many hobbies doesn't necessarily mean someone is depressed, but if there's a change. People can find it hard to enjoy hobbies or find them exhausting. Drugs and alcohol are often used as coping mechanisms for mental health problems. As with people with substance misuse issues, an alcohol bottle doesn't judge or criticise you. Family and friends. Being with people and pretending to be normal can be exhausting for someone with depression, so they might not choose to be involved in activities as much as they used to. Remember, it's a change that's worth looking out for. If they were always the last to come to a party, that doesn't necessarily make them clinically depressed. They just might not like parties. Appetite. Weight gain or weight loss can both be associated with depression. One can be a coping mechanism, the other can be lethargy in not being bothered to eat. Clothing and appearance. Self-care can take a hit. Someone who's normally very neat and tidy might be dealing with issues if they suddenly start to look scruffy. Emotions and low mood. This tends to be the one that most people focus on, but I put it last for a reason. It can be indicative of depression, but plenty of depressed people will present themselves as happy and the life and soul of the party. When I was a key worker, I had a resident who was diagnosed with depression. One Wednesday he appeared and he seemed really bright and positive. We all felt his medication was beginning to work and he was getting better. The next day we found him trying to gas himself in the kitchen. Thankfully he survived. But the point was, he was feeling bright because he had figured out how to kill himself. One of the most upsetting things to read is when a person suddenly kills themselves and they say how bright and full of life and potential this person was. So how can we help? We should be willing to listen without criticism. Try not to solve their problems or suggest that they cheer up. We can suggest that they might benefit from seeing their GP, or there's now online talking therapies and CBT available, and some can be self-referred. Let's look at signs of anxiety. These can be sudden changes, but often are gradual increases. Stress induces hormones to be produced that can affect all aspects of our mind and body. Sleep. Again, a common symptom. Difficulty getting to sleep, which people may talk about, especially if they're tired the next day. Thinking. Stress tends to present itself as worrying over something specific, or just feelings of anxiety. Mixed with tiredness, our ability to focus can be impaired. Recurring thoughts. These might be worries over what other people might think of small and petty. One person's mountain might be another person's molehill. If someone says they're concerned about something, accept what they say at face value and don't try to reassure them or dismiss what they say. Emotional. As stress takes a lot of energy to cope with, people's ability to cope with small irritations can be reduced. Stomach upsets. Stress hormones cause our digestion system to slow down, which is why we get butterflies in our stomachs, and our muscles to tense. Prolonged periods can cause muscle ache and stomach pains. Sense of doom. Prolonged stress can cause us to lose perspective, and we can feel overcome with a sense of despair. So how can we help? Try to remain calm. Don't be dismissive, i.e. don't say you're being stupid, but don't be complicit by saying they should be worried. Talk in a steady, even voice. Try and help them focus on something non-threatening. If they're having a panic attack, remind them that these tend to only last a few minutes, and stay with them until they feel calmer. If they're saying they're having a heart attack, but you think they're just panicking, unless you're absolutely convinced, still call 999. We're going to look at a stress versus performance bell curve. Performance along the Y or side axis and stress along the X or bottom axis. Imagine it's summer and there's no lockdown. If we've nothing to do, we can choose to spend all our days sitting around or possibly staying in bed. With very little stress, we can be very inactive and laid back, which occasionally is nice, but might get a bit boring after a while. With a bit more stress, we are motivated to do things. We get tired, but we can rest and feel refreshed. This is optimum stress. With a bit more stress, we start to become overwhelmed. We soon get tired, but even after resting, we don't feel fully recovered. Our performance can get worse. We can maintain this for a while, but we're feeling uncomfortable. If we continue to get stressed, we start feeling anxious and irritable, getting angry with our friends and family, and if it continues to the extreme, we have a breakdown and we burn out. Thankfully, this is very rare. The ideal is to keep the central orange areas. The occasional slack day and the occasional manic day isn't a problem, but we need to keep it under control. Let's think of an example before we move on. Imagine it's a hot day and you're feeling really thirsty, so you drink 3 pints of cold water just before you're going on a long motorway journey. Initially you're going to feel fine, but after a while, nature will take its course. You'll be desperate to go to the loo. Your body will be feeling stress and you'll want to stop at a service station. If you can get to one soon, then that's great, but the longer the wait, the greater the stress, and to the point where it becomes all-consuming. We become irritable and it's the only thing we can think about. Then, a service station appears, you stop, and all is well. Imagine the issue isn't about finding a toilet for a few brief minutes, but this feeling of all-consuming stress was about life issues that went on for days on end. Hopefully you can see how potentially damaging stress can be if it's not handled carefully.
So this morning we're going to look at what actually happens when stress affects our bodies. When we go through something that we find or what we call stressful, what are the physical symptoms? Sarah and Florence have been asked to blow up a balloon in the quickest time possible. This will put them on the spot and trigger symptoms of stress. Well, that was easy. So now Florence has to do a stage harder. This time she has to hold the balloon blindfolded. And what she is told that there is a pin about to burst the balloon and she's got to hold her nerve. so how did you feel? It was terrifying, wasn't it, when that pin came along? What were the stress symptoms that your body went through?
I was shaking, my pulse rate went up, I had an adrenaline rush, I felt hotter and I wanted to run away.
Florence is experiencing all the classic signs of stress. Her body has prepared her for what is to come, enabling her to react, to fight, or to flee. This is so useful when we're about to do an exam, when speaking in public, or jumping out of the way of danger.
As we saw in the video, the stress of anticipation whilst holding the balloon was worse than the temporary discomfort of when the balloon burst. Imagine how Florence would have felt if she'd held the balloon for a few minutes. We can build up in our heads a whole picture of what might happen. So when it comes to anticipating stress, how realistic are our fears? A study was done comparing people's fears of what they thought might happen with the later follow-up where they described what did happen. 85% found that what they feared didn't turn out to be the case. A further 12% found that what they were dreading turned out to be much better than expected, or that they learned valuable lessons from it for the future. Only in 3% of cases did what they feared turn out to be mostly the case. So in 97% of the situations, what was feared either didn't happen or was much better than expected. So if you're dreading something in the future, remember 97%. It's probably not going to happen as badly as you think.
Here we have Florence. Each box represents something she's got to achieve in the week. So she's had her homework, she's got a pack for scout camp. She's managed to lose her dad's car keys. That's a little bit stressful. She's got to walk the neighbour's dog. All these things she's been asked to do in a few days. Making a birthday cake. Well, some things can be quite stressful if we haven't done them before. Takes longer. And oh dear, now she's got to find her trainers, which she's lost yet again. All these things are building up. You can begin to feel quite overwhelmed with the amount of things that you've got to fit into 1 week. There we are, swimming lessons. She'll have a busy evening tonight. And she's still got the worry in her mind of moving to secondary school. And at some point, we can really feel we can't take on any more. And we feel really overwhelmed. So how do we get past this? How do we manage our feelings of stress? How do we stop that feeling of being overwhelmed happening? We can take each thing in turn. Write it down, look through the list and decide which is urgent, which is important, which needs to be done now. And you see, as we begin to do that, our mind begins to sort into a tidy and neat pile of how we're going to get through all the tasks. Some things I shall leave till another week. Some things I shall get somebody to help me with. Some things I shall say no to. And there we have a completed box. The same amount of tasks, a little bit more organisation and planning involved. And there we have 2 smiling people at the end.
Here are some ways to help on mental health. Don't do too much. Some people like to fill their days with activities, some people don't. If you're feeling overwhelmed by things, think through what is important and what could be left for another time. Make sure you prioritise the right things. Homework, yes. TikTok videos, less so. Eat and sleep well. Poor sleep patterns and poor mental health go together. Having a good diet and a regular routine which includes getting the right amount of sleep can make a big difference to how we're feeling. Keep active. Exercise, or even just going outside for a walk, can help us feel refreshed, and sometimes it helps put problems into perspective. Plan your time well, look forward to a reward. If you've got something you need to do and you're not looking forward to doing it, plan yourself a treat when it's done. But don't have the treat, then try and do the task. So do your homework first and then play on your PS5 or watch that YouTube video, not the other way around. Take a break. Sometimes if you've been working for a few hours, you just need a few minutes doing something else. Have a cup of tea or a glass of water, then you might feel more refreshed. Accept who we are and be able to laugh at ourselves. We're never going to be good at everything, so enjoy your strengths. Try and improve on your weaknesses, and if you make a mistake, accept that sometimes things aren't perfect. Ask for help and keep in touch. This is very important. We can be bad at asking for help, but help is often available. Don't struggle and not tell anyone. Have a long-term view of things. We can get very bogged down with lots of stressful situations. Ask yourself, is this something that will bother me in 10 years' time? If it's not, then try and not let it get the better of you. This section is on dealing with teenagers. Not being a parent myself, but doing youth work for 12 years, gave me perhaps a different take on it. One thing I noticed is that some parents are often taken aback at how quickly children grow. 7 years in your 40s might not be much change, but 7 years for a child is very significant. At the age of 11, parents are doing most things for their children. By the time they get to 18, they're legally an adult. They're responsible for their signature, they can vote, get a driving licence, legally drink in a bar, get married with their parents' consent, own a credit card, and be called for war. In between those ages, they have to cope with puberty, their changing physical and sexual identity, and a punishing state exam system. The surprising thing isn't that so many struggle, it's that any survive at all. We can make the mistake of expecting them to be grown up, and be disappointed when they inevitably fail. Another approach might be to talk to them as if they were adults. Would we talk to our friends the same way as we talk to our teenagers? But the reality is they are going to fail, so don't rub their noses in their failure, and don't be shocked by it either. Take a look at this picture. Assuming you don't think this is a good example of communication, who do you think is at fault here? I'll give you a few seconds to think about it. My view is the older woman is at fault. She probably tried to talk to the younger woman more normally, but that didn't work, and instead of trying a different approach, has just escalated it. How valued do you think the younger girl feels? And how would you feel if you were in her place right here? Some quick do's and don'ts to help with relationships. Don't panic, but do try to keep calm. If you're faced with a difficult situation as a parent, boss, or just a good friend, if it's not you with the problem, don't make it about you. Your job is to try and remain calm. They will do enough panicking for the both of you. If you're faced with a stressful situation, be careful how you first react. Any sentence starting with, "Why do you always?" "You never listen," or "Haven't I told you?" will probably not end well. Take a breath and count to 10 before you speak. Don't blame yourself, but do take responsibility. It's easy to feel that it must be our fault if something goes wrong. We can switch the focus to our feelings. If only I'd done something differently. There may be lessons to take away from a situation, but these can be usually learned later. Deal with the immediate issue first. Don't ignore the issue, but do try and discuss it. Another common view is, it's normal for kids to feel ... or she is always saying ... and pretend the problem will go away by itself, or worry that saying something might stir things up. Some problems do go away by themselves, but often discussing them, or more importantly, listening carefully to someone with a problem, can help. The approach of not saying something so as to try not to make things worse may be interpreted that you don't care. You can't help anyone if you're overwhelmed yourself. If you feel out of your depth, get help. Caring for carers. This isn't an area I'm used to, but I'll give you a few thoughts. I was a support worker for many years, and it's more than just a job, but you do get to go home at the end of the shift. If you're a carer for a relative, Your caring workplace is also your home, and it can be 24/7, with very little respite. Professional carers have team members to support them. NHS staff get people clapping for them and discounts from shops, but none of these are available to voluntary carers. Most carers get little, if any, support from the state. Normally carers would have the right to an assessment from the local council, but this has been temporarily suspended under the Coronavirus Act. Few people choose to be a carer for a family member. It's something they feel is the right thing to do, but for many it will mean sacrificing their needs, free time and plans for the future. That can take a heavy toll on most of them. Some might face depression due to compassion fatigue. So how can we help?
Oh, this is so nice out here, isn't it?
Yeah.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Sometimes humans say they're fine when they're not, but with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, to really find out, ask twice.
You sure you're all right?
Well, actually, I could do with some help.
Okay, well, let's talk about it.
Yeah, do you mind?
It's easy to focus on how the person being cared for is doing. However, also ask how the carer is doing and make sure they're looking after their own health. Don't just ask them once, they might just say yes, as it's easier. Some find it hard to pursue hobbies or even have time off. See if they have any network of friends or other family members that can support them. There are carer organisations available that can offer support and advice. Let's do a final recap. Our brains are good at interpreting the world and keeping us safe, but it can make the wrong assumptions. We can choose to pick better options. Stress is part of life and can get us motivated. Some stress is healthy, but only when we feel overwhelmed is it unhealthy. We can worry about our future, but how realistic are our fears? Planning and being organised can help reduce the stress. Having a structure to the day can help us feel more in control. Overall, there's a lot we can do to improve our mental health. When it comes to teenagers, or anyone for that matter, treat everyone with respect. You don't know how bad their day has been. Have high hopes for people, but accept that most people let you down at some point. When dealing with a difficult situation, try and remain calm and count to 10 before you say something that you might regret later. If it's your child needing help, don't blame yourself, but do take responsibility. You're the adult. Don't micromanage every problem, but don't ignore them either. And don't ignore your own support. When it comes to caring for carers, they can feel very isolated. Ask them how they're doing.